The markets pumped today, but quickly reversed after some fake news. A report that released that Trump was going to initiate a 90-day pause on these tariffs. So we want to talk about it today and see how this is being manipulated throughout the market. We're getting whipsaw moves back and forth, giving people hope and then bringing their hopes right back down to reality. So hopefully everyone gets value out of this video. Thank you so much for showing up, giving up of your time. My name is Dr. B. Welcome to the channel. I'm a holistic life and business coach and strategist for entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Options trader primarily, do trade a little bit in the futures market, but this market right here, we some of you have never seen. So I personally have traded during the 2018 tariffs from Trump and have traded during a 2022 bear market. So there's a lot of similarities with the change in direction that we are having right now. But we want to keep our head on a swivel, as I like to say, because we are in a macro demand support. That means buying opportunities. We are officially headed and have reached a bear market. However, we could bounce at any time. And today was one of those days that gave people some type of optimism just to be shot right back down. So we want to analyze what we have today on the market, Monday, April 7th, 2025, and see what we have for the remainder of the week. Very heavy data week, along with earnings coming up towards the end of the week and entering into the latter half of April. So let's jump into it. Without further ado, let's jump into what we have going on. So the first thing is understanding what happened today. Now, there's questions for a lot of people like, man, I saw my portfolio up and then it was back down and then it was back up, and what's going on? So I want to just show you Bill Ackman. Okay, he's a billionaire hedge fund manager. If you look at this, he calls for a 90-day pause towards Trump, saying, hey, we need to pause this, right? We need to pause this and see what's going on with these tariffs and really kind of get together, band together, because people are going into panic. And maybe it's a little bit on his behalf, right? He's managing a hedge fund. He's getting a hit. His clients are getting a hit. So he's trying to use his power to initiate some type of direction towards the Trump administration, saying, hey, can we pause these for a second? Can we hold on for a second and see what's actually going on instead of going into this trade war and retaliation? So that was the first thing that we kind of saw in the news articles. And then we started to see this right here, right? Walter Bloomberg, a lot of you that don't know, or maybe you should know, is a prominent Twitter feed that has updates continuously around what's going on in the news. Trump is considering a 90-day pause in tariffs for all countries except China. White House, 90-day pause is fake news. So this is not only coming from potentially Trump's administration saying, hey, it came straight out of Trump's mouth that he's going to do a 90-day pause. It is also coming from the White House. All right. This was quickly denounced and said, hey, no, this is not it. Trump actually came back out latter half of the day and said, no, I'm continuing on my route. Y'all can join me or not. Tariffs are on the table. They want to play this hardball game. I'm going to play it right back. So for those of you that need to know what happened today and how the news was manipulative of faking people out, I understand that, a lot of folks had some very strong upside bias today, that we were in some support. Could this be this capitulation, then rip back up? It happened. All right. It happened. So just want to show that there was a news article today. There was a report for a 90-day pause that was denounced. It was not true. And now we have this whipsaw move on the market. Okay. So that is your rationale of what happened today. All right. So here it is. Here it is. So this is the S&P 500 SPY ETF. Okay. We have gapped down, we have gapped down, and we have gapped down again in fear, entering a new week that more tariffs are on the docket. Okay. We also see that we whipped and we formed somewhat of a hammer candle. I don't like a 10-minute, but we formed some type of engulfing candle here that signaled a reversal. We then reclaim some levels here, 504, 505, which is 5,100 on the ES futures. Okay, 5,100 on the ES futures, which should have been roughly around this level here. 5,000 on the ES futures. I apologize, 5,000 on the ES futures. So a very solid psychological level. You can see here behind my big head, 5,000. All right. So once we reclaim this drop right here, 5,000, that is when the market began to rally alongside of that news that I just mentioned. So if we go back to SPY, that was that signal, okay? Only to be denounced and proven wrong, and that's why we got that whipsaw move right back down. Now, you might not think that that is a big move if you're just looking at candlesticks and you're clicking on this video for the first time, but we have almost a 20 to 30 point move that's given back. Okay. So just look at this 15-minute candle here. We go from 495 upwards. We don't keep that in. Excuse me. We go from 495 upwards to 523, which just say round about 30 point move. We give the whole move back in roughly 30 minutes. So we go straight up and then straight back down and we consolidate into close. Now we did try to kind of rally out of this downtrend here. If we have somewhat of a consolidation, you see we started to rally up out and we started to try to get back above. But again, the market is based off a lot of times emotions, not a lot of times, most of the times, based off emotions and confidence that the not only retail investor has, but these big hedge funds, somewhat like Bill Ackman and these billionaires like Warren Buffett, they have confidence in the market that we are headed in the right direction. So after today's kind of whipsaw news that we come right back, that's another concerning, alarming, uncertain statement that really doesn't help our upside continuation. All right. However, like I said before in the intro, we're still going to give some upside moves if we can continue to rally and maybe another news sentiment comes in or a report comes in that we have later this week, which we have FOMC with Fed Powell yapping his gums about interest rates. We also had CPI and PPI that are coming in, all right, along with some financial earnings at the end of the week. So can we recover and squeeze? I do believe so. All right. But today, me personally, a lot of my community, we just simply watched after I saw this whipsaw back and forth. I said, I'm out, guys. I'm not taking a trade personally today. I'm just going to see where some levels are, where we close, and it'll give us a better sentiment for the week. So no money lost is always good money. Okay. So let's give some levels and get up out of here. This is just a quick update to give everybody an idea of what's going on. All right. So the first thing on SPY, and I'm correlating this to ES futures as well. Okay. I want to keep an eye on this 5,000. Okay. Because what you'll see here on the 5,000 level on ES futures is that we have changed out of this downtrend to form higher lows from lower highs. Okay. However, we're still not out of the water. All right. Because if you noticed, every pop has gotten shorted. Every pop has gotten shorted. Every pop shorted, and we're on this somewhat of a downtrend. So we are due for a retracement back to the upside. Okay. We're due for a retracement. So it looks somewhat like this on the ES futures, and I'll go back to SPY. Okay. And that would be very close to that 5,500 level. Okay. That 5,500 level looks like it could be a decent retracement retest that we're looking towards and headed back towards. All right. So what that would look like if we get back above this previous high, which would be 5,300, just round it up to 5,300. If we get back above 5,300 on the ES futures and we start squeezing above 5,300, that's where we can get our squeeze back into that high. Okay. And that should be a gap fill on SPY. Okay. So for those that have never seen this before or correlated, it's like, man, I have a lot of beginners. That's why I'm mentioning it. It's the same chart. Okay. Roughly. So if I mark it here on SPY, that should be roughly about that 550 level. Okay. If I give another level of a retest back up into these highs, right, that's a pretty big retest. Right. It's a pretty big retest. So we got a long ways to go here. Right. And we've got to get through some of these levels. So the first level I really want to watch on SPY is this 535. Okay. That will be my first level that we should pop back up into if we can retain this strength and start squeezing. Okay. Start squeezing. So that'll be that 535. So if we're sitting at roughly 510 after hours, okay, and we start to build some strength, we start to continue along this higher low trend line here, and we can take out this 515 and reclaim it, which will be that yellow line. Okay. So it would look something like this for my visual people. Okay. We've got higher lows. We've got some strength that's building and building and building and building. If we can get back above that 515 and start pushing up into it again, and we have a solid, just a 15-minute candle close above 515, that is where I think we could start retesting back down, maybe to 510, 512, holding, and then we start squeezing back up. So it looks something like this. All right. So that is my kind of idea about tomorrow, potentially right before CPI, FOMC that's going to be headed into the latter half of the week. All right. So this could be the idea that I gave yesterday on my Stock Sermon Sunday, our weekly analysis show that we have. That are these real buyers? Potentially, right? I do believe that buyers are stepping back in at these levels. Okay. But also you got to be mindful that I am going to change my sentiment if I start to see stronger closes throughout the day. So today was a decent, right, green candle close. And if we look over to the left, okay, the last time we had this type of candle, a capitulation fall, is right here. You see that same similar candle to what we have here. Okay, right there. So if we can get back up, stay above 505, okay, get back above 515, I personally believe we can start squeezing back up into that 530, 535. If we close strong, that will start to rally us back into that 550, 560 level, and we start squeezing, okay? But got to get through that 535, 540 level on SPY. But the candle looks very, very similar to that last reversal daily candle that we had back when we reversed last time. Okay. So it looks very similar. If you can see there. And if you can see here. All right. Just drawing that trend line right there and making sure that it does not break back below 505 and under 500. Okay. That's where I would get a little bit concerned. Brian, what if it doesn't do this and we get a whipsaw back down like that to retest these lows? That's a possibility. You'd want to keep an eye on 500. Okay. 500 is that nice round psychological level that if we get back underneath, okay, then you would want to just be a little bit more mindful that, okay, I want to be patient. We're going lower again. Okay. It would look something like this. If that trend line kind of breaks and we take out 500 again, right, I'd want to wait down to the retest of these equal lows around 490. All right. So got to be very mindful of where we go, but there's a level of support. We're sitting in a big demand support where buyers typically want to step up. Okay. But we got to build some confidence around this 490 and ultimately holding this 500 and then building above 505. All right. The reason I'm sticking on SPY, and I'll go to QQQ briefly. The reason I'm sticking on SPY is because this will give you your idea of whether to, take Apple up, okay, confidently, whether to take Amazon up confidently, whether to take Google up confidently. All right. So if we can start getting a build on SPY in the S&P 500 and it starts holding levels, that's going to initiate some buyers into a lot of these tech stocks that have been beaten down 40, 50, 60% from their highs. We good? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know. Take a brief pause, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, as well as hit those notifications if you're enjoying this content. Also, make sure to join Leverage University. That is our Discord that we have here that is full of entrepreneurs, thought leaders, speakers, various different businesses, career professionals, busy people, folks that are looking to learn this skill set of not only the stock market, but just the overall economy. that they can better make decisions for their life and their family. All right. We have our trading floor here where we do trade. Okay. But also at this time, you should be focusing and thinking about some shares, right? And some leaps. For those that know what that is, long-term dated option contracts, typically out a year plus. So these are those situations where you want to take opportunity to buy up the dip, right? But slowly buy the dip in depending on your cash flow that you have. All right. So I'm getting a little bit more bullish here and want to keep a bullish state in mind, but keep very wide ranges, keep position sizes lower if we're trading, right? And then dollar cost average down on your share position. Okay, so let me turn on after hours and show you what the market's doing after close. All right. So look what's happening after close. Again, the light gray area is what's happening when the market's closed. The dark black area is when the market opens for the American New York session. Okay. And this is on the ETF SPY still. All right. So you see, we're still building and building and building and building. So in the morning, if we're sitting up here at 5:15, I don't necessarily want to chase. All right. For those that are in my university or in my Discord in general, clients, anybody, anytime we see a pre-market grind up here, I don't necessarily want to chase and think that it's just going to push directly up. It could, but we want to wait and be patient for that first initial potential pullback and see where that resides. Okay. So it'll grind, it'll grind, it'll grind, it'll grind, it'll grind. We want to be careful of something like that. Okay. Just to kind of keep it in the back of your mind, because only people, typically folks in the stock market only think upside, right? But they don't protect their downside, thinking that it can't come lower. So I think that is the biggest thing to understand right now is, okay, I want to think upside, but still think that it can come lower and pop down. So let me not get too greedy on the upside just yet, just like today, right? I guarantee you a lot of folks, unfortunately, lost a lot of money or had to stop out after this type of candle whipsaws right back down on some fake manipulative news. Okay. Well, dang, Brian, like, should I even be trading? Should I even be doing anything? No, you can still make some money, right? Anytime there's volatility like this, right? Scalping more specifically, meaning short entry trades in and out, 15, 20, 30 minutes, things like that, 5-minute trades, right? They do very, very well, right? But holding the trade right now for a lot of folks, more specifically in options, you have to be mindful that we have very wide ranges. Okay. We're moving not five even. We're moving an average of 10, 20 points on the S&P ETF SPY. Okay. So if you're on the wrong side of that trade, it's not looking good. If you're on the right side, looking great. Right. So that's why I'm letting the market, as we call, settle a little bit, get some levels that I can trade off of confidently, and then go from there. Okay, which direction are we going? If we're headed back up and I start seeing it build, then I'm more confident in getting in some calls on the upside because I can trust it. If I still see top wicks coming in, if I still see sellers stepping in here, right, then I'm probably going to get a little bit more interested in maybe a scalp put back down to retest the lows. Okay. All right, so there's SPY. There's our overview. Chart looks roughly the same on QQQ, so I'll just give you some levels really quick. Okay, there's our trend line. Let me go on a higher time frame here. Let me go. We got to zoom all the way back. Okay, so you see that it popped right into a previous resistance there today, and that was roughly around 440, 450. Okay, so I want to mark this level as well, just in case there's some failures below, which is that 420. Yeah, 425, 422. I'm kind of giving myself like a $3 buffer, just a little zone there. Okay. And the reason I'm getting these zones are for those that are learning still. Do you see that wick right there, 426? Right. And then we have some support that starts stepping in at 425. So if I start seeing some big pushes above this level, I'll turn it green. But for right now, right, do you see what it's doing? It's kind of sitting right here. It fell back underneath it. That's that previous day or Friday's lows. Okay, so I want to mark Friday's lows as a pivot point. pivot, meaning if I see this fail back underneath this yellow line, then that's back underneath those Friday lows, and we could, continue the move back down. Okay, kind of like that. The candle would look something like that. Okay, if I see it building above, right, like this, and we can hold Friday's lows, then that's when that build will start coming, and we can retest that 440, 445 level again. Right, so you see that we got to watch the pivot zone and then decide where it's going, because it's in this wide range that we have right now, down to 400, up to 440. Okay, it's a very wide range. All right, for at least day trading more specifically. Okay, so we're grinding up after hours, kind of coming into these levels. And then what I want to mark here is I want to mark this 430 level, a nice psych level where I see some action around here, which are pre-market lows from Friday. And I want to mark that 430 level. All right. And that's kind of ironically where you see that we stayed below today. Right underneath that 430, right underneath that 430. So I want to see how we react around that 430. Do we break above it in the morning? Okay, we can use that 430, 431 as a support to retest back into 440 again and 442. All right. Otherwise, if I start seeing a little bit of weakness, like I said before, like on SPY, if I start seeing this little weak push up into here, it starts to turn and turn. One pop up in there, it fails, pop, fails again, lower high. We're coming back like that. Okay. So watch this little curl zone. Do we come strongly up, wait for the retest? Okay. Back down, calls up. All right. And we're squeezing. If not, another rejection coming back down. My sentiment based off of how we're moving today is leaning more towards trying to retest these lows maybe one more time. Okay. Trying to retest these lows and see if we can form another higher low, because today's close was roughly around 423. Okay. So we need to see another close of a day above that 423, and that will start to kind of build. If we consolidate here at 425, 424, that will start to build this idea that this could be holding and we can turn this green. All right. Which will give us that squeeze, like I said before. Remember this daily candle that we had here looks roughly the same. All right. One more pop up on a day, pull back again, then we can take it up. Okay. We'll start building a position in here for that squeeze back up. All right. So I'm liking it for a little bit more upside, but we got to find an entry for that. Okay. All right. I'll go over some major stocks and I'll get you up out of here. So hopefully that overview of SPY and QQQ was good. IWM, I'm either waiting on 163 for it to fall or maybe back above, 200. Close to 200. I'll trade it. But in this middle of the range, I just do not like this middle of the range. It's too wide. There's a 10-point move to the downside, if you can see here on a weekly, of where big support and buyers are. Right here. That's where I want to trade calls. Ideally, you can see it's rejecting right at that 190. Last time it was 190, came down to 163, 190, 163, 190, 163, and then sitting right here again. This could simply open up and fall again. Okay. So I either want this for calls or I want back up into this 200, which it might try to retest. So if you are bullish on IWM, or if you want to trade it to the upside, look for it to head towards that 200 level again. All right. So maybe break above 188, 190, and then head towards that 200 mark. And then we'll see what it does from there, which is another big rejection zone. All right. So I could definitely see it doing something like this and then rejecting again one more time like that. All right. So there's IWM. Some long names that I like. Okay. Long names that I like for right now that we want to consider is Apple. Now, I don't necessarily, like I said, this candle is very interesting. Okay. Some fake news, some buyers trying to step in. We got some manipulation today, but we're sitting in a macro demand support level. Okay. Previous highs at 175, 180. Okay. Previous highs 175, 180, 175, 180. I know it ticked down into the 164s, 165s, but it's getting very interesting right around this area on Apple. Okay. So I want to be mindful of what this does if I continue to see it hold and consolidate and pull back here and start consolidating and we start seeing a build, right? Maybe an inverse head and shoulders, some higher lows, right? Failure to go lower. Then we can start taking Apple up, or we can start building a position on Apple to head back to 200 and then start heading back to 210. So all these previous day lows are going to be your targets. Okay. So these are going to be the targets that we need to break through. So just mark, remember the black area. I want to mark the lows. Okay. And those will be targets back to the upside in the short term. So if we can start clearing, then those are going to be your take profits and your targets that you want to take it to. Right. Some of you might be simplistic. Okay. So let me keep it very simple for you. Some people might be like, Brian, all I'm looking at is that we're oversold on a daily. Okay. On the RSI, 4 hour significantly oversold at 10. Okay. Relative strength index is an indicator. Okay. So this is oversold. This is a buying signal typically. Okay. And oversold approaching on a weekly. Brian, I'm not thinking about all these different levels and what they're doing. I'm just buying the dip, and I'm going to take Apple for not only shares potentially, but I'm just going to go out to June maybe and look at calls, right? I'm looking at the ask price calls, and I'm just going to pick somewhere around, I'm going to spend 400, I'm going to spend 700, and I'm just going to buy a call option and just let it ride. You can do that. You can do that, right? So that is, just give the contract, not financial advice, but just give the contract time. Okay. The safer the contract is, time on the contract. So this is what, 2-3 months. Okay. Roughly 2 months or so. That's pretty safe for an Apple to recover in due time. All right. Also, keeping it closer to where the stock price is now. Okay. So if you go further up here to 230s, 240s, 250s, yeah, they could work, but it gets a little bit more risky the further away out of the money it is. So out of the money means away from here. This is all the way up here. So this is out of the money on calls. Okay. So we want to keep it a little bit closer here for safety. Okay. So that'd be the 200, because we can really see that realistically. And then maybe 210. And I can think max maybe 220, because that's the top of this gap fill here. So it would look something like this for Apple in the next month or two, just squeezing back up into there. Right? Well, Brian, why are you saying this? Because some people thought this was the Apple bottom at 210. So they bought calls here. Nope. Gap down here. Bought it at 200. Nope. Gap down again. Okay. Bought calls here. Nope. Gap down again. So do you see what I'm saying is that, like, we can still be oversold, and you want to start building a position, but we got to be patient of where it's trying to head. Okay. Let me turn on some moving averages on Apple. Do you see this moving average here on a weekly? We're sitting right on that weekly 200 moving average, right at 175. So that is technically a buy signal if we're holding this up right on this moving average. Okay. So we want to consider this as a buy opportunity. If it continues to hold this 175 and we get some movement and some movement and some movement, we can start retracing easily to 200 and then back to 220. All right. So consider buys, be cautious of the downside. All right. So I like Apple a lot. I know it's getting hit by tariffs. That might be a question of yours. Like, hey, isn't Apple getting hit the hardest with China tariffs and whatnot? Yes. That's why you want to keep your head on a swivel. Because again, what if this flips and we break? Well, then now we've broken a very macro trend line, and we can head down towards the 140s, 150s. All right. So consider buy, keep your head on a swivel, keep stop losses tight. But I do like it at that macro demand. If we can get some positive news and we get some momentum back to the upside, we're headed back up. All right. Same thing with Amazon as well. Right. See how Amazon's building today. That capitulation drop. Then we had the pop, consolidation, and then start building. All right. So Amazon above 183. I think we can start building back up into 190 and then back up to that 198, 200 level. Tesla, I think Tesla's struggling personally. That's just my opinion. As long as it's below this 250, I want to consider Tesla a little bit weak, but it does have some support at 230. And then if it can reclaim 235, 236, that is a very key reclaim, which is right around this level here. Okay. Okay. So 235, 236. We can see Tesla maybe squeeze if the market gets a nice push and some good news. I want to keep this on watch as well. Right. If Tesla pushes back in that 270, right, what does it do there? Because that is a lower high technically. If we pop back into that, what do we do there? Does it continue? Who knows? All right. That's about it. Google, same chart. Every chart looks the same. All right. Every chart looks the same. Mark those previous lows. 150 on Google. I want to watch and see if it reclaims 152. If we get back above 152, 153, we can push back up into 160. So Google, same chart, gap fill, 155, 160. Okay. I want to see what it does on these stocks when we get back through these gaps. If we can fill these gaps, what does it do here? Okay. That's my big question. So quick little squeeze. What do we do after the squeeze? This is my last stock here that I'll go over, which is NVIDIA. A lot of questions on NVIDIA. What is it going to do? Is this the bottom? I still have 80 in mind. I know that seems crazy that, NVIDIA, who wouldn't buy this dip? Yeah, you can buy the dip. A lot of us bought in our community NVDL shares, AMDL shares. Some people bought some NVIDIA shares, some more NVIDIA. So all the semiconductors looking really, really good as far as supports. Okay. So NVIDIA is sitting in a very solid support at 85 to 90 on their pullback here. All right. We got to still consider that NVIDIA on a weekly time frame, on a monthly time frame, still a little bit oversold here, but not a big deal, right? It's going to recover off of this oversold RSI. My thoughts is, what does it do at the previous lows, which is roughly just sub 105, right? Sub 105. What does it do after it's broken this level here? Does it break above there, or is that just another rejection? Okay. Every chart looks the same. Watch for this retest. What does it do back up in that level? Do we break through it, or do we head right back down? All right. So if you got upside, okay, let it break through, add more to your position if you're confident in it, and we'll go from there. All right. I think that's about it. What else is on the docket? Just wanted to show you all this on Friday. Keep an eye on those earnings, as we talked about yesterday. So we've got Delta on Wednesday morning. Okay. Some airlines popping in, and we've got JP Morgan, big, BlackRock, big, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, massive. Friday before open, going to be a big day for our first big financial earnings that are coming in that could spur the market higher. They've been having very good earnings. I think the financial sector will come through again, so that should spur us higher. All right. Peace, love, and blessings. Thank y'all so much for tapping in. A little bit longer video and update, but just wanted to make sure that you're set and ready to go for the remainder of the week. If you still haven't joined Leverage University, make sure to click that link below. Should be a little discount that pops up. If you need support, mentorship, one-on-one, some consult calls, things of that nature, please let me know. Reach out, DMs, all those things. Websites down below, brianmceldery.com, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.